Knowles on the News. Susan Knowles.
And welcome, everyone. I hope you had a great weekend. I know it was an amazing holiday to remember all of those that have given their lives for us on Memorial Day. And I know that a lot of times people forget about that, but I hope and I know that you didn't. And I hope that you were able to listen to the show that I had posted from Debbie Lee, who is the mother of Mark Allen Lee. He's the first Navy SEAL that died in Iraq. And I had that show playing for you on Monday. But we are back and looking at some of the things in the news, some of the things that kind of make you shake your head, as it often does in the news these days. One of the most recent ones is what happened over the Memorial Day holiday when a 4-year-old boy fell into the Cincinnati Zoo enclosure with a gorilla, a huge gorilla. And this was a very expensive, unique, probably one of those that, you just have to, they're almost extinct, really. And what happened was this 4-year-old boy, whether it was the fault of his parents or anything else, I mean, I have to look at it, too, and think, the zoo has got some responsibility here for leaving an opening that a 4-year-old or anybody else can crawl down through. Because unfortunately, in this day and time, when anything occurs like that, the first one that's going to be blamed is not the person who came into it, if they're an adult, or the parents of the child or whatever. It's going to be the zoo, okay, or whoever left an opening for somebody that a freak accident can happen. It's going to be, the zoo's fault. So, in this case, I in the very beginning, I'm an animal lover, which I'm sure a lot of you are. And in the very beginning, I was looking at this going, gosh, why couldn't they have used tranquilizers to sedate the gorilla rather than killing it? And I wasn't outraged. I was like, something, maybe there was a better solution. But I understood, we're talking about a human life. And I don't care if his parents were negligent or whatever the case may be. A 4-year-old is a human, a 4-year-old boy. He doesn't know the dangers of anything. That's why he has parents to protect him. But when I heard later on the reasons that you can't use darts to sedate them, to tranquilize them, because I think we all think, and this is kind of what I thought. You put that dart in and they're immediately just going to go down. Well, it doesn't happen. It takes a while, and I don't know if it's a couple of minutes or whatever to do it, but it takes a while for them to go down. And during that process, during that time, they could become angry. The gorilla could fall on top of the child, and it looked like heavy enough to have maybe injured at least, or if not killed, that child. But I tell you what changed my mind totally is when I saw the video, and I didn't watch it all because I didn't want to see it, to be honest with you. The thoughts of what could have happened just are too much for me to want to see. But I watched just a couple of seconds of it where the gorilla was pulling that child around like a rag doll through the water. I'm surprised that boy didn't get injured or killed just being dragged through the water like that. He could have drowned. He could have hit his head on the cement or the hard whatever asphalt it was that they had in there. And the gorilla, the gorilla didn't know what it was doing. The gorilla had this, unusual toy that came to life and came into its enclosure. That's all it knew. And it was going to play with it, kill it, whatever gorillas do. We don't know what that gorilla would have done. And I know people are saying, well, he was just being kind. There was a certain point where the gorilla kind of looked at the kid, and the kid started, I guess, screaming. And then the gorilla, it stood back and like, okay, what do I do with this? You don't know at that point if a gorilla is going to feel that they are somehow in danger and could in an instant kill that kid. And I think Jack Hanna was talking, and that's the guy from the shows where they go out and they look at the exotic animals and, capture the animals or whatever. He's been doing this forever. Let's just put it that way. He's been doing it forever. and working with these type of animals. And he said that he has seen a gorilla take a coconut and crush it in one hand. So that boy was absolutely in danger. Whether that gorilla would have ever touched that kid and killed it, I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing, if that were my kid down there, I would want somebody to do something, to kill that gorilla, whatever you have to do to get him away from my kid. And then I'll worry about later what I should or shouldn't have done, what my damages are, and, on and on and on. But you want the child, an innocent victim, to be kept alive. And I know people are saying, well, the gorilla was an innocent victim. I get all that. But still in this world, so far, I know it's probably not going to take that much longer, but so far, human life is valued more than animal life. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And it has been in the past. Like I said, I know everything is changing. Everything is upside down. So how much longer that will go on, I don't know. And as I'm a true animal lover to the core. I would probably run out in front of a car to save an animal. That's just me. And I didn't want to see that gorilla harmed in any way. But I certainly didn't want to have that innocent child killed or harmed in any way either. And if you have to pick one or the other, it's going to be the child. Just the way it is. One of the things I think shocked me the most, and I mean shocked me the most, is I keep waiting for somebody to say, Susan, that was just a joke, and you fell for the joke. Okay, if that happens, I'm okay with it, because the alternative is, my God, I can't even fathom what I saw. I saw again the Breitbart article that was talking about the gorilla, and they listed. And they had pictures of who tweeted this out, the names of who tweeted it out, and everything else. Black people, Black Americans, African Americans, whatever name you want to use here. They were comparing themselves to this gorilla and saying things like, I don't remember I can't quote it, but words like, this gorilla is black, and that's why he was shot. Basically saying, I don't know what they're saying. My gosh. I was so shocked. It was something that, I would expect to hear before the civil rights era. It was so bad. And things like, well, he was brought to this country and enslaved just like we were, or something. I mean, honestly, did we lose our minds somewhere? I could not believe what I was reading. And then, to top it all off, we had all of these people talking about white privilege. That, look at this kid. They killed a black gorilla to save a white kid. And my response was, so you would be okay then if this were a black kid? I mean, what are we talking about here? This is insane conversation. How can we even have a rational conversation? But this is what people were saying. You saw the headlines. And I mean, it was like 3 days straight. Memorial services for the gorilla, people dropping by, giving flowers and cards and all that. And again, I am sorry for the loss of any life. I don't care if it's animal or not. I would not make a great hunter. I'll just be honest with you. I love animals. But again, this was a human being. And as it turned out, for all of those people who were, white privilege, look at what you've done to the black gorilla, it turned out it was an African-American little boy, or so it seems, because his parents, they put a picture up of his parents, appear to be African-American. They're not white. They don't look white anyway. I'm assuming they're not. But like I say, in this upside-down world, I could be totally wrong. But they appear to be African-American, all of them. So now what? Where are those people now that came out and made a big deal about all of this and being white privilege and using the crazy argument of white privilege in this instance? Now, I mean, it really goes to show you where we have gone as a country, as a nation, as a people. If we're going to buy into white privilege, when it comes to a potential white kid falling into a gorilla enclosure and being killed, and somehow that is supposed to be white privilege, then all I can say is we've absolutely lost it. And anybody who sat there and agreed with it, man, you need to check yourself and figure out where the boat, like went ashore and you forgot to get out or whatever. I mean, I can't even believe, I can't even believe I'm talking about it and that we're having this conversation. It's insane that we're having this conversation, and there are actual headlines in the news about that. I mean, honestly, these people, these race haters, all they're doing is using everyone to divide the races. And I had conversations with people too over the weekend, because I posted some things on my private Facebook, but I made it public, so there you go. And I posted some things about it was an article about Netanyahu, and Israel was really mad at his wife for spending money, too much money they felt, and spending the money on I believe it was a relative of hers too, like taking care of that relative. And I said, this is so odd because, Michelle Obama takes her mother on all these vacations. Her mother lives in the White House. And I don't care what Michelle does in regards to her mother or any other family member, as long as the American public, the taxpayer, isn't paying for it. I have a feeling, though, that we are paying for all of the trips and expenses and anything else that her mother gets, just as we are for the president and his immediate family. And I had people attacking me right and left about, how wonderful Michelle was. I should leave her alone. Why would I accuse her of doing things with her mother? Isn't it better to have a grandmother than not? And then they had to attack the Bushes, of course. It's better than having them run around with fake IDs and pretending to be, while they're drinking. It was amazing. And the worst one was a private message from this guy who just let me have it and called me basically every bad name, compared me to a woman a relative of his that he absolutely hated, called me the same names that he called her. It was amazing, okay? This is where we have come, that we can't have a conversation about reality anymore, that everything is about race, everything. If you say one thing about Michelle Obama, it's because you're a racist. That's it. That you have to start at that premise before you can say anything. Whether it's the truth or not about her, whether she's done this, that, or the other, because she's black, it's a racial issue. No, it doesn't have anything to do with race at all. It has everything to do with money and what I'm paying out of my pocket for something or someone that nobody asked me did I want that or not. Again, I'm paying for my government whether I want it or not. And some of the people of the African Americans that were posting, they were absolutely convinced that Obama hasn't done anything to try to divide the races. And I found that it's so hard to believe how you could even think that. And either that's because you don't watch the news, or because it doesn't impact you, and therefore it's not an important enough issue for you to even consider that. For the rest of us who are impacted by it, who, where this white privilege came out of the 1988s, and I've explained that before about, the feminist, the Caucasian feminist that's behind this. And again, I'm assuming she's Caucasian. She looks Caucasian, so therefore she's probably not. But anyway, you have to say, okay, what's the benefit out of this? And the only benefit are to those race haters that are trying to divide the races, and they're doing so because they've met with the president. They had a meeting with him, and he told them how wonderful they were and how great they are. Black Lives Matter people, specifically who I'm talking about. So don't tell me that he has nothing to do with trying to divide the races. I mean, this has been just an incredible week of an eye-opening experience to really see how bad things are in regards to racial tensions in this country. All of it brought about and caused by race haters and this administration that wants to divide the races. So I think Donald Trump was really smart coming out yesterday. I know he doesn't like it. He doesn't like to be questioned from the media or anybody else. And I love the media stance of, don't you want us to do what we should do for every president and question the president's motives or the potential candidate's motives and blah, blah, blah. You know, these people, my God, how hypocritical can you be? Here's your tough questions for Obama when he was running. Oh, are you going to play golf today? Are you enjoying yourself? Thank you. Welcome to our county. What question do you want me to ask you? And you have the audacity to sit there and say to Donald Trump, oh, don't you want us to ask you the hard questions that we should be asking every presidential candidate? No, what I would like, media, is for you to quit being so hypocritical. Why weren't you asking those questions, 8 years ago, and we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in right now? But no, you're coming out now and acting like, well, gosh, Donald Trump, what's wrong with you? We're just doing our jobs. You haven't done your jobs in so long, I don't think you know what your job is. You've let down the American public. That's what you've done. And now you want to go and you want to, you're not even going over there to Hillary and asking too many questions. I think with Hillary, it's so blatant that you have to. Either that or, the president has said to you, oh, go ahead and you need to ask these questions because, we got Joe standing by, Joe and Liz, who are going to come on in if need be. So go ahead and ask the tough questions now of Hillary. Come on. But anyway, it's something that Donald Trump needed to do. He needed to come out and say what he did with the money with the veterans that he raised. He said he raised $6 million for the veterans. And he came out yesterday and, he just pointed out, he thought the ABC guy was a sleaze. I think there's probably more people in the room that he could have pointed to. I don't know necessarily. Again, I don't mind him saying things like that, like that. I think it would be great if you were a little bit more professional. Again, just be professional. You're running for president, okay? Maybe saying to the guy, instead of calling him a sleaze, just say, look, you know what the facts are. You've had the facts. You're just doing this, so you're politicizing it, okay? That would have been fine. That's all you need to say. The guy, everybody will get the point that he's a scumbag and that he's just, paid to go out there and make Donald Trump look bad. But, again, Donald Trump probably could have, saved all the hassle as well. Donald Trump needs to think about these things and just go ahead and reveal them. You know there's going to be an issue. Of course, you're running in a conservative party. They're going to come after you tooth and nail. Hillary could do the same thing, and I'll never ask her a question. It's always done that way. It's a double standard. Always has been for I don't know how long. Only thing I don't want is Donald Trump to keep playing into what their agenda is. And he does play into it when he doesn't sound presidential. That's all I'm saying. And I know many would disagree with me, and that's fine, but I'm telling you, you got to sound presidential at all times. We've been 8 years in a circus. If you call this presidential what we have right now, then, I guess we're miles apart here. The only difference is, I don't even know if there's a difference. My gosh. I was just trying to think what's the difference between Obama and all the past presidents like Reagan. What's the difference? Because they look like, they're wearing the suits and everything else and they look the same. But what the difference really is once they open their mouths, that they're worlds apart. And I just don't want Donald Trump to fall into any trap. Now, when he did reveal how the money had been spent, there was $5.6 million. Wasn't $6 million. Okay, we're a little off, but okay, we're close enough. And immediately said, I wasn't really involved in where the money went, where the donations went to. I'm not sure why he felt that he needed to say that, but also I think in the future, at least for me, it's my opinion, that it would have been great when it was an issue involving veterans, that veterans had been more involved in where the monies went to. Not saying he did anything wrong. I'm just saying I think veterans for so long have been left out of their own care at the VA and decision making. And I would have loved to have seen maybe, some of the bigger veterans organizations and some of the smaller ones, kind of get together. And then Trump says, okay, here's the money. Where do you think it should go? Get their feedback. Get them involved. I want to be in a situation where my president understands that the American people, and especially veterans, should be involved in certain situations. I'm not saying that they should have the final say or that any American should have the final say in political issues. I'm saying that in certain cases, it would be great to involve them. And I think this is one case where the veterans could have been more involved. Because if you listen to the list, certain organizations got more money and some got less. And it was kind of like nobody knows how it was decided or who decided it. And again, I just want to, this is about veterans. Let's involve the veterans more. And now it's coming out because of him calling the guy a sleaze bag or whatever he said. It was sleaze something to the ABC guy. Now we have, once again, the next day, of course, NBC is reporting, Trump has a temperament issue. I don't know if he has, well, okay, I would say that's possibly true. I don't know if it's a temperament issue, but I think what it is what Donald Trump has always used in the business world, and it's worked for him probably in the business world. It's not going to necessarily work for him in the presidential world. I mean, you have to be more diplomatic. And I know people are saying, yeah, but that's been the problem in the past. No. You can still get things done. You can still make government function the way it's supposed to. You can still have people work together or not, but you can be diplomatic, professional about it. I mean, we're not talking about Hillary's temperament, are we? I think Hillary has a temperament issue, but she keeps hers more in check because she's been doing this a long time. There's a lot of things that she's had to, let's say, probably swallow and not talk about because it involved the Clinton dynasty and she wouldn't want anybody to know what it was. So she's very much able to avoid conversations and not get upset when people are calling her out on things when she knows what they're saying is the truth. She's had more practice at it. I don't want the president to be a fake or a phony. I'm not saying that. But I think that people would respect you more and you would have less articles and, media coming out and less time and energy spent on you. I don't want this presidential election or the future of America to be about the president, which it has been for 8 years so far. Okay, I really don't want to hear every day about how the president is spending over $100 million on vacations, as this president has done, or that this president is out playing golf when something is happening, or that he's having a baseball game, woo, good times, in Cuba when people just died in Brussels, things like that. I want to see the president get down to business and what needs to be done, how we put jobs back out there, how we get people back to work, how we get people off of welfare that have been, on welfare. What is it, 45% of the country now? It's some huge number are on welfare because this administration has made them dependent upon welfare. It's very hard once you get something like that started to take that away. People are too dependent. I mean, it's like you talk about people who are addicted to drugs. What about people who are addicted to having the government take care of them? I mean, it's almost like an addiction. it's just psychological. I wouldn't doubt if it's physiological in some instances. I mean, think about it. If you have a whole lot of children, or you have been living off of so much money coming in, and you know you're depending upon it coming in, and it's been coming in every time, and you don't have to do anything to get it. Somebody says, hey, you know what, we're going to make you get out and get a job now. You're like, what? It's going to make your head spin, your eyes roll back into your head, and you're going to do everything that you can to fight it. So people who never, thought about voting their whole lives are suddenly going to become interested because they have something at stake that they don't want to lose. And so for me, I don't want to hear about the president's personality, the president's temperament, whether the president's not doing his job. I don't want that to be the focus. I want the focus to be on how the president is going to work with Congress and fix this country. And I don't want, again, him to be the focal point of every article I read every day. We need to do things differently here, and we need to get back to a certain decorum that we haven't had. Now, I don't know if it's possible, to do that or not, but we certainly need to try. And that's not about laying down, rolling over, and giving up or giving in. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I am suggesting that we do this in a manner in which it shows the respect of the office. And then we move forward, and then we actually do get things done. I mean, there's so much work to be done. I don't know if you can get it done in 4 years. I don't even know if you can get it done in 8 years. It's going to take a huge amount of time. And I do think, in a lot of respects, that the American public, we need to be more involved. And the government needs to reach out to us and ask us our opinions, instead of sitting there in some ivory tower thinking, oh, well, this is what I want to do, and so I don't really care if the American public wants me to do it or not. Those days have to be over. And I don't know which way we're going. I don't know if we're going towards a dictatorship one day or continuing to have a republic. I do know that we are losing our freedoms every day, and I do know that we're losing our freedom of speech, especially when we don't like something. I think then we start to want to punish. And I don't know, an example is what happened with Glenn Beck, and we can talk about that in a minute. And I know people hate Glenn Beck. That's not even the issue. I think Glenn Beck can take care of himself. Glenn Beck's a big boy. He can figure out what he needs to do or not do. That's his decision. But I'm concerned about what Sirius FM did, or XM, or whatever it is, Sirius Radio, Sirius XM. I'm concerned about what they did, and not because that it came from Glenn Beck, not because it came from Brad Thor, not because it was about Donald Trump. It's a bigger issue than that. There was speech that they didn't like. They wanted to punish. And so they're like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to take Glenn Beck off for a week. Well, it happened to just be the same week that he'd already had a scheduled vacation, so it really doesn't make that much of a difference probably to him. Yes, will there be some dollar figures that he will lose? I'm sure that he will. But then you have to stop and ask yourself, and again, take the hatred away for Glenn Beck. When you're asking yourself this, try to keep it out of the emotional issues here and make it just about free speech. They're having a conversation about a hypothetical that oh my gosh, if you go and listen to anybody's radio show, a number of people I can think of, I'm not going to say their names, but they've had conversations like this and worse. I've seen Twitter accounts left up and Facebook feeds that actually called for the direct assassination of someone, and those people are still out walking around talking about it, and it seems to be okay. But I'm concerned. I'm not concerned for Glenn Beck. I'm not concerned for Donald Trump and their free speech. I'm concerned for your free speech, for my free speech. And I think, again, you ought to be concerned too. But you have to take it out of the realm of, oh, well, I'm glad this happened because it was Glenn Beck and I don't like him anyway. I mean, I've seen so many people and their comments about, oh, he's back on the bottle, he's a nut job, he's this and that. Let's face it, part of the reason you don't like him is because he was for Ted Cruz. And again, if you can try to get beyond that point that, well, great, I want to hurt Glenn Beck in some way financially because he was for Cruz, he should have been for Trump, whatever. Again, no, let's stop. Even that right there should tell you that you're impacting free speech. Okay? And then if you listen to what they were saying, again, Brad Thor is the one that started this conversation. He's a thriller writer, an author, and he even said this is a hypothetical. What would we ever do, if let's say Trump gets in as president, becomes a dictator? Okay, nothing wrong with the conversation so far, right? I mean, we should be having that conversation about Hillary, Bernie, and the current administration, really. So then, I think where it went sideways is where, Brad says, well, let me put this hypothetical out there, and it's going to get kind of dark or whatever he said. And he was making the point that the Congress is so weak, they wouldn't do anything if he became a dictator to throw him out. And he's right, they wouldn't. And then he said it would be up to a patriot to take him out. Now, for me, the way I interpreted that meant to do some harm to him, meaning, I don't know what, but, you would have to have somebody assassinate him. So I can get that. I can get that. And now Brad is kind of saying, well, I didn't really mean that. Whatever. I still don't understand. For me, the conversation was a hypothetical. And if you and I were having that conversation, I would want you to be able to have that conversation. Now, I might have said, well, Brad, this is a hypothetical, right? You don't mean, you're not saying that you're going to hurt Donald Trump or that anybody else should hurt Donald Trump, are you? I might have had that conversation. I might have said that. But it's kind of like we are allowing ourselves to have our freedoms impacted based upon the fact that we don't like a certain person. Now, if Donald Trump had this conversation about a presidential candidate, I honestly don't think we'd be talking about it. We would be okay with that conversation, and people would be saying, well, what are you talking about? He was only giving a hypothetical. He didn't say that he was going to do it or anybody should. I mean, really, you'd be defending Donald Trump. I know that you would be. And you should be defending free speech. If Brad Thor had said that he was going to assassinate Donald Trump or, he was going to have somebody else. I mean, now that's where you draw the line. That is an obvious threat against someone's life. But let's not make things up so that we can silence people from having a conversation. I mean, are you kidding me? Louis Farrakhan and people like Black Lives Matter have had conversations that would make your head spin, and yet nobody says anything about it. Nobody cares. You know why? Because, I don't know. I'm not sure why. Maybe because they don't dislike them enough. And maybe they dislike Beck more to have that conversation. I don't know. But we really need to start looking here closely at what we're doing. I mean, there are some people that talk that I don't like, and I wish they could be silenced. But I would never want them silenced, because if I silence them in their free speech rights, I'm going to silence myself and you and everybody else. It's not about just them. It's about the impact it has on me and my rights. So I want them to go ahead and be able to say whatever they're going to say unless they directly threaten someone and it's an imminent threat. And that's why right now we don't have the police going to arrest Brad Thor or Glenn Beck, because they know that it was a hypothetical that they were talking about, and nobody threatened anybody's life. And that's why when again, it was another attempt at trying to stop free speech. When Glenn Beck was joking with Stu, his co-host, partner as well, and somebody had the Secret Service come out there, whatever. Come on, people. And again, you know what that was about. And because you don't like Glenn Beck, you're okay with it for the most part. And again, for me, this is not about Glenn Beck. It is so much bigger than Glenn Beck. And I don't know why people can't see that. And I don't know why people can't see that their rights are being stripped away. And you can't put all of your hope into the fact, well, Donald Trump's going to get in and he's going to change that. What's going to happen if Donald Trump gets in and he leaves? Then what? Then who's going to protect your rights when they've been eroded? If he's not going to be there, then you're going to have to hope that the next person is not going to erode your rights. No, what you should do when this starts happening is you should stand up and speak out about it now before all of our rights are eroded to the point we don't have rights again, or we're looking at one person to try to help us to keep our rights. Those rights belong to all of us. They're that important. And I think, you want to get involved, too, and with a new president, we're going to all have to get out and speak more about things and about what's going on, because we're just going to keep having our rights eroded by also looking for one person to give us everything that we think that we need. This is our country. It shouldn't be about one person. It should be about all of us doing what we need to do. Perfect example, I was on yesterday on the Glenn Beck program, and I was talking about veterans issues. I don't know, I can't tell you how many years of my life I have heard, oh, the VA sucks, we need to do something about the VA, and let's do something about the VA. And we have the senators now coming out with their Veterans First Act. Really, I thought veterans were always supposed to be first, okay, but we have an act now that really says it, so that should give us a clue, right? And they can't even decide on, the House and the Senate can't even decide on what they want. But I mean, over and over, I don't know how veterans sit back and don't just march on Washington, D.C. and demand their rights. I really don't. I mean, we have been screwing over veterans for how many years? Oh, my God, I don't even want to think about it. I've talked about this so many times before. And, this new omnibus bill, boy, this Veterans First Act, this is going to take care of everything. No, it's not. Do you know in this what this has been proposed? And I didn't know this until I really started looking into it. In regards to caregivers of seriously injured veterans, a lot of times their relatives are the ones that take care of them, and they get reimbursed by for the VA or whoever to take care of the injured veteran. Well, right now, the post 9/11 veterans are the ones that are getting the caregiver reimbursement, or the monies for that. So 9/11 and beyond, they get the caregiver benefit. What this bill proposes that on or before May 7, 1975, those people will start getting caregiver benefits. Okay, well, that leaves out veterans from 1975 to right before 9/11. A lot of those people are the Gulf War veterans, right? So they're not going to get the benefit of the Veterans First Act. And here's the proposal. Oh, don't worry. Once the VA gets the technology infrastructure up to take care of those people from 1975 and before, once that's done, and we know that the VA moves at lightning speed at those things, 2 years after, then we're going to start giving the benefits to those people after 1975 and before 9/11. Why? My question is why? why should any veteran be treated differently than any other veteran under the same circumstances? Why should they have to wait one day more than anybody else? Why were those people before 1975 never included in this? You know, come on. Again, if I were a veteran, I would be standing up and screaming everywhere I could and saying, no, you know what? I've had enough of this. I don't care how you pay for this. You're paying for illegal immigrants to come into this country. You don't mind opening up, paying for them. Now you're paying for Cubans to come in. They go to the front of the line. They get more money than everybody else. Just like that. And you're telling me I need to wait? I need to wait until the VA gets everything put up? And then I need to wait 2 years beyond that? No. Now. Right now. And why don't you take away, you know, some of the huge salaries that you're paying some of these directors in the VA? If that's what you need to do in order to pay me what I'm entitled to, that every other veteran is getting except me, then you need to do that. Because you know what? I'm tired of waiting around for you to do the right thing. I am tired of you waiting to fix things because obviously you're not fixing it. And if you can't do that, then, you know, then perhaps you should be looking at some other way that all of us veterans can receive the same benefits. And again, I understand it's going to be a big cost issue. And, you know, they're not even talking about, they don't want to talk about the cost right now. It's somewhere between $9 billion and $4 billion, depending on who you talk to. So they don't even know. So, you know, we're not even going to talk about it, and you're going to expect the VA to just jump right in there and get everything fixed and, you know, oh, now you Gulf War vets, you don't worry. You got 2 more years to wait. No. Nope, doesn't sound good. And you know what? What else, if I were veterans, that I would be upset about? Is the fact that there's alternative medical treatment that you could receive that you're not receiving. For example, traumatic brain injury. That's often misdiagnosed as PTSD. There are clinics set up, and I had a Dr. Carol Henricks on my show, and she's talked about it. She does HBOT, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. The VA, according to her, doesn't even have the proper measurements, you know, the proper tests to use to even measure whether or not you have traumatic brain injury or something else. And yet, you're not getting what the treatment that you need that this Dr. Henricks could provide for you because you're not given that choice. And instead, you're diagnosed usually as with PTSD, and here's your bag of pills. We'll talk to you later. And under the choice program, this should be something that you have an opportunity to partake in. Anyway, don't get me started about veterans issues because I could just keep going on and on. I get so tired of hearing the same old excuses. Well, we're going to fix the VA. This time we got it. Here's more money. And, you know, until the next time. And then, you know, you have somebody coming out who was a former director over there at the VA in Phoenix who gets 2 years probation for not listing the $50,000 or more that she received supposedly from a lobbyist friend who just so happened, according to court documents, was in the beginning a supervisor of hers at the VA and then went over to open a company. It was a VA, it was a VP at that company that worked and got VA federal dollars. And they worked to help get businesses connected with the VA. So, I don't know, was there a conflict of interest there in any way? And obviously that's why that she got dinged, because it was a potential conflict of interest in her not putting that down and on her financial documents and her saying, well, this was just from her friend. Don't we all wish we had friends like that? My goodness. So, I don't know. And supposedly this new Veterans First Act is going to help make things quicker, where you can fire people, hold back on bonuses and things of that nature, which should have been done 2 years ago in the last omnibus bill that we had. That's where we said we were going to do that. But as it turns out, according to the VA, well, you know what? It was just so cumbersome in trying to figure out how to fire somebody that it was just better to keep them on. I mean, it took the one in Phoenix, it took 7 months on administrative leave to get her fired. So, I don't know. Don't talk to me about the veterans' issues. But again, if you get me started, I'm just going to, blood pressure is going to be right up the roof. But I do think that veterans are going to have to become more vocal. They may need to walk, and walk on D.C., and they may need to come in there with motorcycles, I think, as they wanted to do before that got all out of whack. Who knows what happened with that? There were so many rumors about that. But marching on D.C., maybe that's what you have to do. I mean, veterans have done that in the past, sometimes with not good results. But sometimes, if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do, as long as you are permitted with legally to do that. And I don't know why you would not be with permits. And I do hope if Donald Trump gets in that he will do what he says in regards to veterans. What I think what I think he should do, and I'm not a veteran, so I'm not speaking for veterans, and veterans should have a voice in this. But from the veterans that I've talked to, you get rid of the VA and you start all over. And I know that's not going to happen, and that's not going to happen. But that's what needs to be done. It doesn't work. It's a system out of control that money is thrown at every year, and people try to figure out how the best way that they can get the least amount of work done. People that I've talked to, veterans that I've talked to, say with disability claims, they're getting done faster now because they're just denying them and pushing them off over here to the appeals process. So it looks like they're doing something. People are still on a wait list trying to get in to the VA to be seen by a doctor. So I don't know. I think you also need to put more veterans in the VA. And then again, I'm sure the unions aren't going to like that. But you know what? This is about veterans. This is about, God, what is it, 100 years now? I don't know. It seems like forever that nothing has been done. So let's do a major overhaul. And if Donald Trump can get in there and that's what he says he's going to do, and he actually does something of that nature, that would be great. Because I'm telling you one thing. I'm tired of hearing about this since I was a kid. And if I'm tired of hearing about it because people aren't getting taken care of, I'm sure the people who aren't getting taken care of and the family members of those who aren't getting taken care of, they're sicker about it, hearing about it than I am. And as I've told you before, my father, a veteran, never got the care he deserved, earned from the VA. He had a hearing loss his whole life that was never taken care of by the VA because they're like, you didn't get that in, with machine guns going off next to you. No problem. Gosh. Anyway, sorry there. But, this has got to change. And like I said, people are going to have to take more responsibility for what's going on. They just have to, or we're not going to get anything done. And no matter who the president is, God forbid it would be Hillary, Bernie, or Biden and Liz. We as Americans need to take more interest in what's going on in our country. We have allowed ourselves to get in this position because we were busy doing other things. And yes, life is busy. And yes, things, you need money and you got to eat. But I'll tell you, we are so close to losing this country, and I don't know if it's too late or not, but if we get that opportunity, if we get a second chance, we better not blow that second chance, or I don't think we'll get a third one. So any issues that are out there that are important to you, you're going to have to speak out about it. You're going to have to write articles about it. You're going to have to get involved in social media probably to get the word out and how you feel and maybe get to the right people that need to hear what you have to say. You may need to go march with permits in Washington, D.C. You may need to go into your local council meetings and talk there. Hopefully you won't get arrested, for having free speech there, as we've seen in some school districts and everything else. That's why I'm saying, we're just so close to losing our country and all the freedoms that we have, and we've got to do something different. And finally, this out of California, this will make your head spin. And again, I've said in the past, what happens in California, it starts there, and then we see it sometimes in other states across the nation. It kind of just blows on across, if you will. California moves to criminalize undercover filming at Planned Parenthood. In the wake of undercover investigation into Planned Parenthood's fetal part sales, the California legislature is considering a bill that would criminalize publishing secretly recorded video footage of healthcare providers. And isn't that great? AB 1671, which has been backed by Planned Parenthood. Wow, now that's a surprise, isn't it? See, it's going to be backed by Planned Parenthood. Let's see. So they're going to take money that they've got in federal dollars, right? And they're going to take that money and they're going to invest in their future by putting it into politics, right? Okay. But wait a minute. I thought this was all about women's issues and giving breast exams and things like that. So if they're taking money out of their pockets to put into a political issue to protect their butts, then how is that helping women? It's helping Planned Parenthood and the people who work in Planned Parenthood, but it's not. How does that involve a breast exam or something of that nature? So they would criminalize that AB 1671 would criminalize the publication of confidential interactions with state licensed medical personnel, including abortionists and clinic staff, punishable by up to 1 year in prison and a $10,000 fine per violation. Okay, so in other words, they want to, obviously, if you're having a conversation with somebody who's going to try to sell you baby parts, they're going to say, number one, that's a confidential communication, and you can't do that. And basically, every conversation we have or every violation, it's going to be $10,000 fine. So you and I probably just better not talk, or you better not be recording me when we're doing it. So if you also, I want them to explain to me how that was a confidential conversation they were having when they were sitting in a restaurant and they were, eating salad and talking as they were discussing bloody baby parts. I don't know. I don't see how that was confidential. And what this will also do, that anybody who, let's say, is in fear or thinking that they're not getting the health care that they should be getting, who is actually in a patient-client relationship, you won't be able to record your conversation without permission with your health care provider. And good luck getting that permission, because it won't happen. I tell you, we had an opportunity to defund Planned Parenthood, and we once again said, oh no, Planned Parenthood is just as wonderful as any of the Democratic candidates we have running for president out there. They're crystal clean, every single one of them. We love them, and the reason I point out the Democratic candidates is just because they're progressive left wingers, and so is Planned Parenthood. And so we didn't get rid of them. Our GOP failed us, and Planned Parenthood wasn't defunded. And now we have a guy who, and the other person, it was a female with him, the two that videographers that filmed this, that basically one of them, the guy, had his apartment rifled through, and they went in and they seized all of these video clips and everything else that he took undercover. So those are all gone. And basically they took a grand jury investigation that didn't even involve him and brought it back around and indicted him. So you want to talk about protecting your own and big money. This is it. I went to Planned Parenthood once in my life when I was in my, early 20s, perhaps. And it was, for me, it was like the worst experience that I ever had. And I didn't get the feeling that it was this warm and fuzzy place that really cared about my health. I really didn't. And, it shows where our society is. And I know people have said this. We're more concerned about a gorilla than we are about 3,000 babies a day that get killed, and especially the babies that are killed in the African American community. Where are you, Black Lives Matter? But California, disappointed in you, didn't not see it coming. I mean, of course you would do something like this because you are very progressive. And it's amazing to me how now we're going to look at a bill and try to shape something into a confidential communication when there was no patient-client privilege or anything else, when they were taking undercover footage of the conversations they were having about selling body parts. It's disgusting. But, also in California, you cannot record someone, can't record their voice or anything without their permission or without them, knowing that it would be recorded in some way. So if we're on a telephone conversation in California, I can't record you without your knowledge and your permission that I'm recording you. Again, we're so not focused in the places that we need to be focused, as our rights just kind of float out the window, and as the rights of children are impacted more and more and more each day. We've got to stop. We've got to do something different. We really, really do. And I don't know, again, how much difference it's going to make at this point, but it's better than sitting around doing absolutely nothing or waiting for somebody else to do it. The time for doing that is gone. The time, if you can't see that your children's lives are being impacted in a negative way by this government, then I don't know. I don't know what to talk to you about in that regard. But their little brains are being filled with things that I'm not sure that you would be happy with their brains being filled with in public schools, and who they're sharing bathrooms with, and are they really safe at school anymore? There's so much going on. We can talk about that at another time. But those issues like that, I talked earlier about veterans, and I'm surprised they're not out marching on the streets. I'm surprised parents aren't either. And I think if more parents stood up and complained to their schools and stood together, you wouldn't have this problem. But the fact is, people don't want to stand together anymore. We spend too much time cutting each other down and telling them, who they should vote for and how they should vote, and if they don't, X, Y, and Z. We've got to start leaving people alone and letting them do what they want to do and how they want to do it. But we need to stand together when it's important to get things done so that our country and our freedom remains, and maybe even is stronger than it's ever been. But unless we're willing to do that, it won't happen. And we'll still be waiting for, a savior, right, to come in as the president. Well, my president will never be my savior. I can tell you that right now. So we need to just figure out how we get back to reality, how we do things like we used to, and the things that used to work in this country when people stood up for principles. I don't even know that people understand, younger people, they've never been taught those principles because we allowed the schools to teach them instead of the parents teaching them. That's something else that really needs to stop. And I think parents are starting to wake up and are starting to get a little bit more aware that this is happening and that it's a real problem. So we need to just tune in a little bit more each and every day to what's going on so that we can try to make this a place that we all want to be in a world that we're happy of what's going on. I don't think people have been very happy for too long about what's been going on in this country and around the world. But I'm so glad that you are here today. I thank you for listening, and I will see you again next week. Until then, God bless you. Take care of yourself.